Today, we're going to continue on with our look into our civic duties and responsibilities as citizens, but we're going to look specifically at what is the purpose of the government. So why do we need the government, okay? Why are these people, these places, why are they important? And what do they do for us, okay? So like I shared, I'm not like excited to teach this lesson as much as I'm serious about it, because it's very important that you understand the government's purpose, so that as you grow up into adulthood and you become voting members and you are having your adult decisions directly influenced by government, you can make sure that the government is doing its job, right? And you can make sure that you know what your job is to help keep the government functioning so that it can provide all of the important things that we're going to talk about, okay? So why is the government needed? Why can't we just live our lives and not have these rules and not have these laws? Why do we need it, okay? That's what we're going to take a look at today. So I'm going to ask you, a new activity has just unlocked you. You might have to refresh your page if it is not there. That activity is called, Why is the government needed? Why is the government needed? I'm going to share my screen so you can see what it looks like. We're going to investigate this question and we're going to get your opinions on why the government is needed, okay? So take a look right here, why the government is needed. It says with your teacher, you're going to click the add response. The lesson today is going to be active, meaning that we are going to be actively writing some information down digitally, and then you will have some independent work as well, okay? So we're going to click the add response together. We're going to review the success criteria. You are going to follow along with me on slides 2 through 6. We're going to complete these together through class discussion, okay? It's very important that you are aware of the class discussion and that you are participating in the class discussion. If you do not understand what we are talking about as a class, you will not be able to complete your independent work today, okay? So ask questions, make statements, check in, make sure you understand, and if you don't, let's talk about it so you can get there, okay? Go ahead and click on that add response so we can see our work for the day. Excuse me, I don't know why I'm so yawny. Alrighty. Slide 1, it said review the success criteria. I'm going to go ahead and play this video on my screen so you don't need to click play. That way you don't hear it twice at 2 different times. Here is our success criteria for the day. You have 2 goals, a reading goal and a social studies goal. 2 things to be successful on today.
Today, you will have 2 goals. You will have a reading goal and a social studies focus goal. For your reading goal, you will ask questions to show that you understand a text. You will also
Can you turn it up?
show that you understand a text. Remember, your level 2 will show you some important vocabulary that will be helpful for you with this specific goal. For social studies, you will be discussing the reasons that governments are needed, and you will identify goods and services that government provides. These will be the focus of the questions that you are being asked and the questions that you are answering in today's lesson. Take some time to discuss these important vocabulary words with your class.
Okay, so you are going to be asking and answering questions about the reason that governments are needed. Okay, so the questions that you are going to ask, that you are going to answer, are going to be about the government and what it does for the people that it governs. Okay, we were asked to understand our vocabulary words, so we're going to take a look. We need to remember that when we ask a question, we must also answer that question. Okay? The answer is the response to the question. We know that when we are looking in a text, we have to find details. Details are going to be the pieces of information that answer that question. Okay? The words goods and services we're going to learn today, so we're not going to talk about those right now because they're coming up in our lesson. Alrighty? Go ahead and go to slide 2 for me. This is a reminder of the vocabulary slides. Government, remember, is the system and people who make the rules in a community. Okay? Let's do that together. Let's remember. Government is the system and people who make the rules in a community. Let's do it together again. Government is the system and people who make the rules in a community. Okay, very good. We know that our communities can be small, like Indian Creek, and our government of Indian Creek would be our principal, right? He's in charge. He's helping us make our rules. Then we have our larger community, the city of Lawrence, and we have a mayor who is in charge of the government of the city of Lawrence. Okay. Then we can go even bigger and we can have a state. And then we have senators, we have governors, we have legislators that all help form Indiana's government. And then we go even larger into the community of the United States of America. And in that government, we have our president as well as all of the other Congress members. So our government starts small in their community size and in the number of people that work in them. And as the community gets bigger and larger, the jobs become bigger and the people that we need have to be more, okay? So why do we need the government? This is a selection of a passage that we're going to be using of a book from Mayan. And again, just like last week, we're going to look at specific pages. Excuse me, my goodness. We're going to look at specific pages from this text. So I'm not assigning the whole thing to you on Mayan because it's a very long book and we just want to focus on the information that we're in charge of. So a good government. And I think you guys were struggling to hear, so I'm just going to read this instead of playing the video, but I want you to follow along on your screen. So your eyes right now should be looking at your seesaw. And I want you to start where it says a good government, the red letters. We're going to start there. A good government. One person can do great things, but when people work together, they can do even bigger things. A good government helps people work and live together. It keeps people safe, and it makes the laws that help a country run smoothly. So here we see the jobs of our government, right? Our government needs to make sure that people work together. It needs to keep people safe. And it does that by making laws, okay? Over here on the second paragraph, follow along with your eyes. There are different types of government. The United States government is a democracy. This means that the United States citizens vote for or choose their leaders. Citizens are people who belong to a country. So we've talked about this in the past several times, that when you are of the right age, you'll be able to vote for who you feel should be in your government. And that type of government is called a democracy. There are other governments where there is not a vote, okay? And monarchies where there is a king or a queen. That person is in charge because they were born into the family that's in charge. There's no votes for that. Okay, so there are different types of government around the world. We happen to live in one that we get to choose the leaders of. Okay, go ahead and move on to slide 3. Slide 3, you will notice there are 3 spots for examples. This is what we're going to work on together. It says watch the first 2 minutes and 58 seconds of this video and share out what you heard or saw that explains why the government is needed, okay? So we're going to watch this video and you are listening for examples of why do we need the government, okay? Why is the government good for a country, all right? So you will stop at 258 and share out your examples of why is the government needed, okay? Why do we need government? So listen up to these first 3 minutes. Why do we need the government? And then you will share out and record some examples. Okay, here we go.
Today, we are going to learn about the purpose of government. Governments are formed to keep people safe and to help people work together. The government does that by making laws. Laws are rules made by the government to keep people safe and to help people work together. You see, laws are the way governments fulfill their purpose, to keep people safe and to help people work together. Some laws you might know. What about this one? You must not cross the road when the light is red. This is an important law because it keeps people safe. It keeps people safe, and that's one of the main purposes of government, is to keep people safe. If you cross the road when the light is red, you can get hurt. So they set up a law. You must not cross the road when the light is red. What about this law? You must not drive faster than the speed limit. This is a law the government set up because it wanted to help keep people safe and help people work together. When you drive faster than the speed limit, you can hurt yourself and you can hurt other people. It's not safe. Now, it also doesn't help people work together because when you're on the road with other drivers, you're working together to get to where you need to go, and you need everyone to follow the laws. You must not drive faster than the speed limit is a law because it keeps people safe and it helps people work together. Here's one I'm sure that you know. You must not steal things. This is a law that's very important because it keeps people's possessions safe and it helps people work together. You can't work together and help other people if you're taking things that belong to them. That is why the government has a very important law that you must not steal things. When you steal things, it hurts other people, it doesn't keep people safe, and it doesn't help people work together. The purpose of government is to keep people safe and to help people work together.
Alrighty, what are some examples that you heard of why the government is needed? Why do we need the government? Okay, I'm going to send you into a breakout room so that you can have that discussion. Why do we need the government? How does the government help to keep us safe and work together? Alrighty, you were asked to discuss what are examples of why we need the government. What did you see? What did you hear in the video? Why do we need the government? Aiden G, you want to test out your sound and see if you can answer the question? Aiden G, we hear fuzz. So I could tell that you unmuted your microphone, but I was not able to hear you still. Okay, I'm gonna check in again here. Send me a message when you think. Try again. Nope, it's still fuzz. Sorry, kiddo. I know that's frustrating. Let's see if we can figure it out. Alrighty, Josh, why do we need the government? What examples did you see or hear from that video?
We need the government because they create laws to keep us safe.
Okay, yeah, without the government, we wouldn't have laws. Josh, make sure you share that inside of your breakout room as well. It's a great idea that could have been valuable for Leah and Christopher. Christopher, why do we need the government? What do you think?
They didn't have it. A lot of people will be robbing now.
Yeah, right. That's a very specific example, but it sets up protections against people stealing our things. Christopher, make sure you share that inside of your breakout rooms. Some people were missing out on your voice inside of there. What are some examples of why we need the government? Why do we need the government? Anton, why do we need the government? Anton, you got to unmute, baby.
What question you ask?
Why do we need the government?
Safe things in the world.
Yeah, to keep people safe inside of our world, inside of our communities where we live. Thank you for sharing. Alrighty, let's go ahead and get ready to write down some examples. I'm going to put examples up here based on our conversation that we just had. You can put the same examples as me, or if you have one that didn't get shared out, you can put that as well. So we know that our first example of why we need the government is it helps keep people safe. Now we know that it only helps keep people safe, right? In order for people to actually be safe, people have to agree to the rules and work together, right? So when we have people that are breaking the law, that means that they aren't doing their part. So just because there is a law doesn't mean that it is guaranteed to you. We as citizens must also agree to that law. An example would be to stop at red lights. We know that cars need to stop at red lights so that cars and people traveling the other way have the opportunity to do that. If we see a red light and we say, I'm late, so I'm going to run through this red light, well, the government did its job of making the law, but you as a driver did not do your job, and so you caused other people to get hurt. So it takes teamwork. The government makes laws that keep people safe. We as citizens have to do our job to meet those laws and to follow them, okay? So it helps keep people safe. Another thing that was stated in the video and that some of you talked about is that it also helps people work together. We're going to take a look at some examples of how it helps people work together in the next slide. He did give traffic as one example of how people work together by following the speed limit, right? Lots of people on a road. If you are all following the speed limit, traffic is typically going to be okay. It's going to go the way it needs to go. It's going to follow the same speed it needs to follow, and there aren't going to be a lot of problems. So that's a way that we can work together by all of us agreeing to the speed limit. If we don't do that, like if I decide that I'm going to drive a lot faster, that's when we can start to see lots of accidents happen, and that's when we can have lots of traffic build up. So it helps us work together as well. So the government helps keep people safe, and it helps people work together. Give you a moment to type those up. Another example, I think it was you, Christopher, that brought it up, is that it keeps our property safe, right? So not only does it keep people safe, but it keeps property safe. There are laws against us stealing. We can't just walk into a building or into a house and think, yeah, I want that, I'm going to take it. Or, oh, I heard that you have a new video game system, I want that, I'm going to come steal it, right? So we are able to keep our property safe as well. We talked about this inside of your Bill of Rights, in the fact that police must have a warrant to enter your house. That means they can't just walk up in your house and tear it up because they're mad at you for something, right? So it keeps property safe as well. You might have been more specific in your examples, right? You might have added in specific things that you saw about traffic laws or specific things that you know about other laws, and that's okay, as long as you have 3 that are connected to why we need the government, okay? Alrighty, let's go ahead and go on to slide 4. This is where we're going to kind of sort examples. So this will help our brain understand how the government helps keep people safe and works together. It says sort these laws into the categories they belong in the most. So down here we have some categories of items that we can move into keeping people safe or helping people work together. So let's take a look. Drivers must follow the speed limit. Drivers must follow the speed limit, okay? When we think about what happens when drivers don't follow the speed limit, people are not safe. There are typically car accidents. There are typically people that get struck. There are typically drivers that crash into objects as well. So drivers must follow the speed limit is an example of a law that helps keep people safe.
Miss Sousa,
Yes.
couldn't we keep parks clean and help people work together and keep people safe? Because parks clean, that if you don't clean them, then it'll be germs.
That's a great point, but we are doing the sort together and we've only done this one so far. So let's hold our horses a little bit. Alrighty, let's take a look at the next one across. People can join work unions. So work unions are kind of like clubs, if you can imagine a club, and they're for adults that work at a certain kind of job. And these clubs help kind of watch each other's backs and make sure that they're treated fairly. So these work unions help people work together. So people in these clubs make sure that they are each treated fairly, make sure that their working conditions are good, and they work as a team to improve them if they're not. So work unions can help people work together. And there are laws saying that people are allowed to be in unions, okay? So these help people work together. Next up is keep parks clean. And this was Terrence just brought up, and yes, he's right. This is to keep people safe and how people work together. Our directions say belong in the most, meaning what would happen the most. So when we go to parks, we want to have picnics. We want to exercise. We want to play. We want to have club meetings. We want to go on hikes. But if there's trash all over the place, then we can't do that. So we aren't helping each other be able to use the spaces that we're both allowed, okay? So if I go to a park and I throw my soda can onto the slide, you can't come to the park and slide down it safely because that metal might cut you, right? So now I'm not helping you do what it is that you want to do. Or if I decide to have a birthday party in the park, but I leave my paper plates all over the tables and my paper napkins all over the ground, then when you come to have your picnic, you can't do that. So I didn't help you use the same space. So we didn't work together. So keeping parks clean is a best example of how we can work together to make sure we have spaces that we need. Okay? Let's take a look down at the bottom row. People can protest. You've seen a lot of protests in your lifetime. There were protests this summer. There were some events that happened last week as well. Protests are people working together, okay? Now, this is important. We understand that protests must be safe and protests themselves cannot break the law. So when people are protesting, they are already safe. But people typically protest because they want something to change. They don't feel that something was right or fair. So they are coming together to say this needs to change. Okay? People can protest. This is how people work together. So a lot of people that agree on something being unfair say, let's go talk to people that can change this. Let's go get on the news so that people are aware of what we feel or what we believe, okay? So protests help people work together. Next up, cars must stop at red lights. This is pretty obvious that keeps people safe. If we don't stop at red lights, we can crash into other cars. Other cars can crash into us. We can hit people who are walking by. None of these actions are safe. So cars must stop at red lights helps to keep people safe. You must have permission to enter someone's house. This also helps keep people safe. This helps me know that when I am sitting down on my couch watching television with my husband, I do not have to feel like somebody could break into my house at any moment because we have to have permission, okay? Now, this is another example of where just because there's a law doesn't mean that it never happens. We as citizens have to agree to these laws and have to say, that's a good idea. I'm not going to break into someone's house. Okay, so we have to work together and agree on these. Next one, new leaders are elected by voters. This is an example of people working together. Okay, as a country, people are able to vote. The people who are voted the most or are most popular then become our leaders. So people work together to agree on the type of person that they would like to be in their government, whether it's at that smaller level of a mayor or a governor, or the larger level of our senators and our president. Okay? So the government has created these laws. So when you are driving, the reason that you know you're pretty safe at a red light is because the government has said so. If there was no government, nobody would stop at red lights. In fact, if there wasn't a government, we wouldn't even have red lights because the government pays for those, right? So the government does do a lot of things, and that's what we're going to talk about next. Okay. On slide 5, it says goods and services. How does the government keep people safe and help them work together? Well, we have to have ways to do that. And the ways that we do that are called goods and services. Okay. Goods are items which can be touched and used. Okay. So this pen is an example of a good. I can touch it, I can use it. If I go to a store to buy it, I can touch the thing that I want to buy. Okay? An example of a good provided by a government would be a stoplight. You can go touch that stoplight and it can be used to direct traffic. Okay? That is a good. A service cannot be touched. Okay? So when I get a stain on a dress and I take it to a dry cleaners, that is a service. Okay? They clean my dress for me. They've done something for me. Okay? When I go to get my oil changed in my car, and the mechanic takes my car and says, I'll be right back with your car, and they do the work, that is a service. It is something that has been done for me. Okay? I can't touch the fact that they're doing an oil change. An oil change is not something I can touch. I can touch the oil. That's a good, but I can't touch the change. Okay? So services are things that are done for you. All right? An example of services would be firemen who come to put out fires. Those are a government organization. So when they come to a house and they put a fire out, that is a service that they have done for you. Okay? So goods and services. Go ahead and look at slide 6. Slide 6 says watch the rest of this video and share out what you heard or saw that explains the goods and services the government provides. So we're going to watch the rest of this, and I want you to be listening for goods and services. Okay? What things can people touch that the government gives you? And what are some things that the government does for us as services? Okay? To be listening and thinking about goods and services.
But how does the government make sure people follow the laws? Police officers. Police officers make sure people follow the laws and catch people who don't. They also keep our communities safe and help people who are in trouble. Then, after they've been caught by the police, the court system helps decide if a person has broken a law and what the punishment should be. The purpose of government is to keep people safe and to help people work together. The government doesn't just write laws and enforce them. The government also provides many services. Services like fire departments. That's something the government runs because it helps keep people safe. It's part of the purpose of the government to keep people safe, and that's why they provide the service of fire departments. The government also provides the postal service. The postal service is the way that we send letters and packages and all kinds of fun things, and it helps us work together. That's part of the purpose of government, is to help us work together, and the postal service helps us do that. That's why the government provides that service. The government also provides the services of libraries. Libraries are very, very important. The government runs those because libraries teach us and we get knowledge. And with that knowledge, it helps us work together. That's why the government provides libraries. The government also provides public schools. This is very, very important because everyone has the right to learn. And when we learn and when we get an education, we are able to work together better, which is why the government provides schools. The government also provides the services of the military who protect us here and overseas. And it's very important for us to be safe. The government has to keep us safe And the government does that through the service of brave men and women who serve in the military. The government also builds public structures like parks, bridges, roads. This is very important because it helps us work together. So how do we pay for all this? Well, the money for the government comes from taxes. Taxes are payments that people make to the government. Governments are formed to keep people safe and to help people work together. Well, that just about does it. If somebody ever asks you, what does the government do and why is it there? You'll know what to tell them because you watched this video. How cool is that?
All right. So goods and services. You were asked to think about some examples that you saw or heard in the video. Let's record some of these. What did you see or hear that is a good, something that can be touched, or a service, something that is done for you that the government provides? William, what's one of them?
Services, the fire department.
Yeah. So the fire department, the fact that there are firemen and firewomen who can come to a building that is on fire and can put that fire out, that is because of the government, okay? If there was no government, we would not have as many fire departments, okay? We might still have some, but we definitely wouldn't have as many as we do because the government gives the money so those can be a thing, okay? Terrence, what's an example of a good or service that the government provides?
So, like, a law is that people cannot go to the Capitol only if they're part of the department.
Mm-hmm. Would you call that a good or a service?
Or good.
So a service would be that there's laws in place. So what we might do is that there are laws made for us. Okay, so you just described an example of a law. The fact that there are laws made for us is a service. Okay, there are people making these laws. All right, that is an example of service. If we did not have a government, we would not have laws made for us. Okay. Josh, what's an example that you heard of a good or a service provided by the government?
The mail department.
Yeah, the postal service. The fact that you get mail in a mailbox is because of the government. If there was no government, you would not have mail. That is a service that is provided. Someone has agreed to take your letters, to take your bills, to take your postcards, and to give them to the people that you want them to go to, or the companies that you want them to go to. That is a service. They are taking your mail for you so that you do not have to drive all the way across a city or a state or a country to get your letter or bill to them. Okay. There were more examples. These were a few of them. If you had a different example that you wanted to record, that is totally fine. Okay. Today in your independent work, I'm going to pull up these directions. It says on slides 8 through 11, you will read the text, answer the questions on the slide in a complete sentence, and highlight evidence from the text which supports your answer. On slide 12, you will use the label or microphone tool to explain why you think we need a government and share examples of goods and services the government provides. Okay, click the chat to turn in your work. So again, right here, it says read the text, answer the question in a complete sentence, and highlight evidence. So on slide 8, there's a question. Read the text independently, answer that question, highlight your evidence. Slide 9, same thing. Here's a question. Read this short text, highlight your evidence. Same thing on 10. Here's a question. Read the text, highlight your evidence. Same thing on 11. Here's a question. Here's a text, answer, highlight. And on slide 12, you are going to share the answer to the question of why are governments needed and tell some goods and services that they provide. You have 2 things. Notice the yellow, notice the pink. 2 things to say on this slide. Okay? This is your assignment that you are going to complete independently.